Well, a big weekend ahead for Warren Buffett. Berkshire Hathaway's annual meeting getting underway in Omaha in just a little while. But big talk there, of course, will be Goldman Sachs and also financial regulatory reform. How's Warren going to react? Let's bring in Andy Serwer, Fortune's managing editor, for more on that. I mean, this really is going to be the talk of the meeting, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, a couple pieces, as you suggest, Poppy. The Goldman Sachs part, of course, he's a big investor there.
Sure.
Made a lot of money, but of
Still
course,
making a lot
still
of money.
making a lot of money. But of course, you know, the firm very much in the crosshairs. Reputation is tarnished. You know, there were people talking about Warren Buffett coming into the firm and becoming chairman like he did at Salomon Brothers back in the 1990s.
A reputational.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
But you know, he's keenly aware. So far, been very supportive of Goldman CEO Lloyd Blankfein.
Looking at financial regulatory reform and derivatives in particular, more strictly regulating derivatives, putting them on the open marketplace, on exchanges, if you will. Very interesting developments in terms of Berkshire's stance on that lately. Yeah,
there's been a big story going on this week about that, Poppy. In fact, the Wall Street Journal broke this story earlier this week, and it had to do with derivatives and putting up collateral against these derivatives, putting up real cash money against these contracts to safeguard them. Part of the financial regulatory bill was to make sure that collateral was put up against these derivatives, and the question was, would it be retroactive? In other words, would you have to put up collateral against derivative contracts that already existed?
Right.
Now, Warren Buffett apparently did not think that was necessary, I guess particularly for him. And, you know, who knows whether or not that's the case, whether or not you should collateralize previously existing derivatives.
And when you look at Berkshire as a whole, Andy, they have, just under $70 billion worth of derivatives. So you've got to take that into account.
Exactly. And, you might kind of come to the conclusion that you could trust Warren Buffett with derivatives that weren't collateralized, but what about the other players?
Sure.
So it's a very kind of complicated matter. But in any event, Buffett didn't think that it was necessary, didn't want this bill to go retroactive. And in fact, the Bill of Rights in the United States sort of suggests or mandates that laws are not retroactive, new laws, but often new laws are retroactive. So, it's kind of becomes a legal matter. In any event, Dave Sokol, who works for Warren Buffett, apparently was out lobbying the senators. The senators got very ticked off about this and then made the bill so it would be retroactive, which would
hurt Berkshire.
Hurt Berkshire and presumably cost the company billions and billions of dollars. Now, one thing about this, it ain't over. I mean, the bill is not law, and so it could swing back. There could be pieces of the derivatives contracts that may not be, retroactive, that wouldn't apply to them. So, it's not a done deal yet, but you can see how, the tugging and pulling of this financial regulation is going right now.
Overall, going into this weekend, you're going into the shareholders meeting in Omaha, what would your main question be for Warren Buffett right now? I mean, it's such a critical time. Last year when we were there, the economy was completely falling apart. This year, we see some more economic stability, but you've got big questions about Goldman Sachs and big questions about reform.
Well, isn't it funny how the news goes? I mean, just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the big story was the economic recovery. Now the big story is financial regulation and the tie-in, the Goldman Sachs piece, which, the timing of that, of course, is very curious perhaps that, the civil suit is filed and then the hearings are held and then the administration is trying to get, this bill passed into law. So not a coincidence probably. But, that's front and center. And, of course, the problems in Europe, Poppy, front and center as well, which seem to be dragging the stock market down. So I guess my question to Warren Buffett would be, exactly what would you support in terms of financial reform, regulatory reform? Because there are a lot of different parts, a lot of different ways to play here. So I would ask him very specifically what would he do. And, I think that you probably some pretty good stuff in his answer.
That always is,
Yep.
Andy. Thank you.
Thanks, Poppy.